my name is Robert Forster, and I'm talking about some influences or things that just came in that may have affected my album Strawberries. The first one is an influence doesn't have to be musical. It can also be structural. And Strawberries is my first 8-song album. I wanted to make an 8-song album for decades, but you need about 35 minutes of music, and so I finally did that. And I've always admired albums. There's hundreds, thousands of great 8-song albums. Ones I've come across was probably the first really strong one was Marquee Moon by Television, and I just used to look at those 4 songs on each side, and it was just so neat and beautiful. I used to listen to that a lot in the late 70s. In the mid-90s, I listened a lot to Roberta Flack's first album. It's called First Take, and that has got 4 tracks aside. I listened to that intently. Gene Clark's No Other is another one. Anyway, 8 songs, always wanted to do it. Loved albums that did it. Now it's on this one. The second influence, or like shading on what I did with this record, is there's 3 New York bands that I love. The Love and Spoonful, Talking Heads, and Vampire Weekend. And to me, these bands are the same, and they just do the same thing but in different decades with different sounds. But all 3 bands are trying to make brave, intelligent pop music, and I hope that's always been a part of the Vampire Weekend. That's always been a part of what I've done right back from the late 70s. So the first 2 songs of the album, I try and do that on Tell It Back to Me. I can hear echoes of that on Tell It Back to Me and Good to Cry. A third thing is that Leonard Cohen, You Want It Darker, his late period, which I hadn't heard much of. I'd read a book recently, 2 books actually, written by a Canadian journalist who's interviewed all of Leonard Cohen's contemporaries, and that really opened my mind to Leonard more. And then I listened to his late period stuff, and it's really, really strong. And I'd been wanting to get away on this album, on Strawberries, from doing first-person stuff. I was tired of all the I did this, I wanted to keep writing songs, but from a different viewpoint, with a different narrator. And Leonard helped me with that. There's a song, the first song I only use it on one song, this process, a song called All of the Time, which is track 1, side 2. And the lyric goes, which is unusual for me, there's propaganda and there's truth, and there's a feeling that I get when I'm with you. Second verse. There is surveillance that no one knew, and there's a feeling that I get when I'm with you. Third verse. I'm going to try and do a little bit of Leonard Cohen here. You want it darker. I'm ready, my lord. Okay. There was a murder with just one clue, and there's a feeling that I get when I'm with you. There are sensations that just aren't true, and there's a feeling that I get when I'm with you. Another influence is Dylan, Bob. He's been someone that I've been with all along, and but I don't know how much ever flowed on to like my songwriting. But there's a strain of his songs that like songs like Visions of Johanna, or Tangled Up in Blue, or Standing in the Doorway, or Highlands, Key West, where Dylan starts a 7 or 8 minute song, and it's quite simple musically, and then you just float, and then the song just goes. It's no new instrumentation comes in. It's just this sort of rhythmic, molten core of melody and sound, and he tells a story over it. It's a very, very hard thing to do, and I thought it was beyond my reach, and I didn't think it might have been in my style, although I wish that it was. Anyway, there's a song on the album that's 8 minutes, which is 2 minutes longer than anything I've ever written. It's called Breakfast on the Train, and I flatter myself to think that it just might be in that train of songs that I just mentioned. The last influence, that's the wrong word, it's flavor that you don't even see coming. This is a minor thing, you know, like you think of influences and you think, oh, you sat around with a record collection and just soaked it all up and wrote the songs. But sometimes something can come from your past and it's just like a really minor thing on the record, but then it sticks in your mind when you look back on the record. And this is on a song, the last song on the album, called Diamonds. Unusual song for me, and then it's sort of got a quiet verse, but a big bolshy chorus that's just like, it's real loud and quiet dynamic. And the band, who are the Swedish players, the Swedish band, with Peter Morin producing, they were handling it beautifully, and we're in the practice room just before we recorded, and we had a woman they called Lena Lundberger, who was playing the saxophone, and she was playing in these choruses too, and they were sounding fantastic, and it was sounding so good we decided on the third chorus that we'd have an instrumental fake chorus. So we'd go from the third verse, and then suddenly, instead of me singing, wailing, we'd come in with a thick sax texture, although she was playing on other stuff. And so I was standing in the practice room, and she just looked at me, Lena, who's a wonderful person, a great player, and she just said to me, like, what do you want? Like, what should I play here? And in that moment, I just said Albert Ayler. And believe me, I'm no jazz aficionado. I know very little of the music, but Albert Ayler, I heard a bit in the early 80s, and I knew that signified something. And she went, yeah, great. And we went through, played it the next time in the practice room, and she just was fantastic. And so, I mean, that's not really a musical influence. It's just a moment where a musician looks at you and asks you what you're thinking of, and a word just comes out that describes what you want. And in that moment, although you haven't listened to that artist in decades, and suddenly that becomes an important little component on the album. 5 Things, Strawberries. Bye.